Cosmetic surgery is frequently perceived as a method to recover youthfulness and amplify self-esteem. Nevertheless, for numerous well-known personalities, the unyielding quest for ideal looks has taken unforeseen and radical shifts. In this video, we delve profoundly into the accounts of 15 famed individuals whose metamorphoses resulted in appalling, and at times heartbreaking, consequences. Heidi Montag's saga with plastic surgery persists, one of the most shocking and advisory narratives in recent recollection. At merely 23 years of age, she made headlines by undergoing an astonishing 10 aesthetic processes in a single day. These surgeries encompassed a brow elevate, nose job, chin abbreviation, mammary enlargement, and liposculpture on her midriff, thighs, and even her behind. The utter magnitude of this transformation was virtually unheard of in the public domain. The immediate aftermath of this drastic makeover was nothing short of devastating. Heidi withstood excruciating physical anguish alongside an emotional liability that promptly became overwhelming. The swift succession of modifications not only resulted in a dramatically dissimilar aspect, but also compelled her to confront the grave realization that she had made a life-altering judgment without permitting herself sufficient occasion to entirely grasp the implications. In the years that ensued, she openly conceded that the background was far more intense than she had envisioned. Heidi's narrative serves as a potent warning illustration, demonstrating that plunging headlong into excessive cosmetic boosts can convey profound remorse, both physically and emotionally, and reinforcing the view that sometimes constraint is the wiser preference. Tara Reid's ascent in Hollywood was formerly distinguished by her energetic charm and a particular semblance that separated her in a fiercely competitive industry. Nevertheless, her choice to undergo aesthetic operations radically altered her narrative. Tara's surgeries, which encompassed mammary augmentation and liposculpture, were intended to elevate her curves and general physique. Instead, the outcomes fell short of anticipations. Her mammary augmentation did not synchronize with her inherent proportions, giving rise to an unbalanced and asymmetrical aspect, while the liposculpture left her epidermis with a corrugated, uneven texture. These unforeseen repercussions not only modified her physical mien, but also impacted her assurance and the manner she was viewed by the populace. Tara's background underscores the perils linked with surgical boosts that promise faultlessness, yet may yield results that are difficult to rectify. The complexities from her processes became a topic of widespread debate, overshadowing the talent and allure she once effortlessly displayed on screen. Her narrative serves as a warning anecdote, emphasizing how the pursuit of an idealized image can sometimes arrive at the expense of genuineness, a compromise that not every celebrity is equipped to embrace. The story of Jocelyn Weinstein ranks among the most noticeable concerning plastic surgery. In her search for a facade that corresponded with her husband's peculiar tastes, she underwent countless processes that severely changed her face. Jocelyn went through several rhytidectomies, blepharoplasties, malar implants, lip augmentations, and even jawline remodeling. As opposed to enhancing her intrinsic beauty, the combination of these surgeries produced a countenance that many considered shockingly unidentifiable. Friends and onlookers started calling her Catwoman on account of her pointed, lengthened characteristics and the unnaturally stretched dermis that now defined her appearance. The problem with Jocelyn's conversion wasn't a solitary surgery gone awry, but rather the collective consequence of extreme modifications. Instead of delicate improvements, each surgery introduced further disfigurement to her facade. The subtle equilibrium of her innate expression was forfeited, leaving behind a face that seemed almost sculpted instead of maturing naturally. Even though she remains unrepentant and even welcomes her conversion, Her instance acts as a harsh reminder of how drastic beauty adjustments can abandon a permanent and divisive mark on oneself. Priscilla Presley, celebrated for her grace and ageless allure, experienced a devastating tribulation when she became the victim of an inadequately supervised cosmetic operation. In an attempt to refine her looks, Priscilla was given injections encompassing industrial-grade silicone, a substance never planned for beauty use, administered by an unauthorized person. These injections resulted in acute facial deformation. Instead of the slight amelioration she might have wanted, the silicone induced her facial forms to turn out to be uneven and asymmetrical. The injury was so broad that, as time passed, Priscilla had to undergo several remedial operations, including rhytidectomies and filler therapies, in endeavors to undo the detriment. Sadly, these subsequent interventions couldn't completely reinstate her original attributes. Her tribulation has since served as a grim caution about the perils of pursuing swift enhancements through unregulated medical operations. It exemplifies how extreme procedures to alter one's semblance can have unintended results, giving rise to irreversible shifts that compromise natural loveliness and inflict persistent emotional and physical anguish. Simon Cowell, famous for his acrimonious criticisms on talent contests, also turned into a subject of discussion concerning beauty improvements. In an effort to maintain a youthful mien in a field that favors a revitalized facade, Simon underwent multiple processes, including the employment of facial plumpers. The conversion was so conspicuous that many noted he seemed almost unidentifiable compared to his earlier, more rugged aspect. Even though at the start intended to refurbish his traits, the outcome was a countenance that seemed noticeably modified. Acknowledging that the shifts might have been too radical, Simon in the end elected to liquefy some of the plumpers, striving for a proportion between upholding his semblance and retaining his natural allure. His experience acts as a convincing portrayal of the hazards linked to beauty interventions, even for someone whose triumph is fastened in a distinct and identifiable existence. Simon's narrative underscores the significance of a restrained methodology to beauty processes, where subtle improvements often yield more pleasing, enduring results than drastic alterations. Donatella Versace has extensively been a trailblazer in the sphere of high fashion, and her methodology to aesthetic processes has mirrored that same courageous mindset. Over the course of time, she has frequently resorted to treatments such as Botox, dermal plumpers, and laser skin resurfacing to sustain a rejuvenated facade. Nevertheless, these interventions have at periods directed to an appearance that manifests significantly changed from her original attributes. Reports denote that her epidermis, once naturally sleek, adopted an unnatural gloss, while her lips and cheeks became excessively enlarged. The continuous utilization of cosmetic augmentations resulted in a manifestation that numerous have depicted as overstated, straying far from the understated elegance of her earlier years. Observers have specified that her face now exhibits distinct indications of comprehensive modifications. Although she persists an influential force in the fashion business, her metamorphosis stands as a cautionary illustration. Donatella's evolution highlights the hazard of overdone cosmetic processes, where the demarcation between improvement and overindulgence can turn unsettlingly vague. Laura Flynn Boyle, once esteemed for her uniquely acute and well-demarcated characteristics, underwent a striking metamorphosis in her visual presentation over the decades. As her profession progressed, conjecture regarding her experiencing myriad aesthetic processes commenced to proliferate. Even though she never overtly verified each process, discernments from devotees and experts imply she had injectables, nose reshaping, rhytidectomies, and even forehead lifts. These alterations progressively reformed her previously slender and angular characteristics into a more circular, voluminous aspect. The alteration wasn't solely about revising her semblance. It profoundly influenced the core of her on-screen depiction. In her initial years, her visage held a fragile equilibrium between acuity and smoothness, but the surgical mediations disturbed that harmony, culminating in a manifestation many discerned as excessively polished and less genuine. Lara's background emphasizes how a sequence of apparently trivial adjustments can jointly conduct to a radical conversion. As opposed to delicately boosting her inherent loveliness, the consequence was an unplanned deviation from the hallmark aspect that rendered her renowned. Her narrative stands as both a warning anecdote regarding the perils of inordinate aesthetic modifications and an instruction in the subtle equilibrium of beauty amplification. Joan Rivers, the fabled comedian and television icon, was just as famous for her razor-sharp wit as she was for her profound captivation with cosmetic surgery. Over the years, she underwent an assortment of processes encompassing facelifts, neck elevates, eyelid boosts, and a consistent routine of Botox and filler regimens. While she repeatedly made amusing of her surgical transformations, employing comedy as a defense against critique, the verity was that each operation steadily altered the natural characteristics that once defined her animated persona. As her face became progressively tense and wrinkle-free, the expressive lines that conveyed her signature sagacity and cordiality commenced to wane. The very excellences that made her feel relatable and charming were substituted by an aspect that some deemed as overly artificial. Despite her candor in discussing both the triumphs and lamentations of her aesthetic pilgrimage, Joan Rivers' narrative serves as a striking recollection of how the persistent pursuit of youth can sometimes steer to an extreme transformation. Her inheritance remains an amalgamation of comedic brilliance and the poignant actuality of a profession shaped, in part, by the repercussions of acute cosmetic augmentations. Thanks for watching. You survived till the end. Impressive. If you enjoyed it, hit like, subscribe, or just nod in approval. Either way, you're awesome. See you next time.